Well, good evening. Welcome to the live coverage of the City of Westlake Village 2011 General Municipal Election. My name is Ray Taylor, City Manager, and I will be hosting this evening's coverage. I want to welcome everyone who is in attendance this evening. We've got a great turnout here. We're live in the council chambers, and our goal tonight will be to report the election results as soon as we can. The polls closed precisely 1 minute ago, so our 4 precincts right now are buttoning up their activities, and will be reporting shortly with their ballot materials and ballot boxes out in the parking lot where they'll be received. We have a wonderful program this evening that we are very happy to share with you. Our goal, as I mentioned, is to report the results as quickly as we can. Our goal is also to provide a little bit of special election coverage, an election primer, if you will. I'm calling it Election 101. And our goal is to provide a little bit more information about the behind-the-scenes look at how elections are processed, something that not everyone gets a chance to be involved in unless you're a precinct worker at one of our 4 polls. And our goal also tonight is to ensure that our community understands that the election process is one that is very open and transparent. As I mentioned, we're live here in the chambers, and you see our 4 election boards behind us. All of the processing of the ballots will be done in full view of the public. It's a very open and transparent process. And by the way, I would say parenthetically, it's a process that is really dictated by the state elections code. There is really no room for any error with regard to that. It's a very deliberative process, and we'll be following that process this evening as we go through the counting of all the ballots. Now we have on the ballot this evening, we've got our city council election race. We have 2 seats open, and we have 3 candidates running, Philippa Klessig and Chris Mann and Ned Davis. And then we are also handling the election as it relates to the City of Westlake Village for Measure K, which is the Las Virgenes Unified School District parcel tax that will appear on our ballot. So when all of the counting occurs and all of the canvassing takes place for the final election results for our particular election, we will be transmitting that information on Measure K to the county elections office, which will add our vote count to the jurisdictions that they're handling for the district itself for that particular election. One caveat I would add this evening is that we will see all the vote by mail ballots counted this evening, as well as all of the precincts, the 4 precincts we will see counted this evening. However, there will likely be a number of provisional ballots that will be processed later this week. So we will not have final conclusive results tonight, but we certainly will have the vote by mail ballots counted and the 4 precincts, to the extent that we can, most of those ballots counted as well. So let's get on with it. Right now we're going to move to our vote counting station. And I'm going to introduce a couple of gentlemen that are represented here today from Martin & Chapman, our elections firm. We have with us tonight Gary Pocarina and Bob Perez. And as you can see, these 2 gentlemen will be operating the ballot counter this evening. And I wanted to ask Gary just to sort of tip us off as to a little bit about the how this process works with the ballot counter and what steps they're going to be going through tonight.
Right now we're getting ready to do your logic and accuracy test. This is a test that we do prior to counting any votes. We run the logic and accuracy, which we performed at our own firm down there, and make sure that the machine is counting properly. Once we confirm that, well, our 2 logic and accuracy ladies will come over and sign and prove that we are counting accurate at this time. Then at that process, we can start processing the ballots. Once you complete all the ballots, we will go through and run the logic and accuracy again, which will let us know that the machine is still counting accurate and proper. And at that time, then the election will be over and we'll have your results. So it's going to be pretty quick. Depending on how long it takes our precincts to come in, hopefully we will be done, by 10 o'clock, let's say, hopefully by 10. But you got a small precincts here, so it should be pretty quick.
Well, thanks very much, Gary. We appreciate that little bit of intro on the running of the ballot counter. This evening will be a very fluid evening. As we've indicated, we have no way of knowing exactly how long each precinct will take to finish their paperwork now that the polls have closed. But we will assure you that once the ballots are delivered and we have a hotline into our city clerk, our elections official, when each precinct is ready to bring in their ballots, she will be getting a telephone call, and that will be a signal to us that at least another precinct is just about ready to report. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and start the process of the ballot counter, running the logic and accuracy test, as well as the beginning of the processing of the vote by mail ballots. And just by way of background, I think we have a little over 870 vote by mail ballots that will be counted this evening.
858.
858. Thank you for that correction. All right, so we'll get started with that. And in the meantime, I'm going to ask Scott Wolf, who's our planning director, to bring up our precinct map that will be shown on our rear projection screen here. And I'm going to take just a few minutes to highlight a few aspects of this map that you see up there. We have, as you know, 4 precincts. And let's take a look at the vote by mail numbers by precinct. Altogether, we have 1,787 vote by mail registered voters. And we apologize now that the ballot counter is now running, so you'll have to excuse the interference of the noise there. So we have 1,787 vote by mail voters, registered voters, out of a total of 5,772 registered voters. So we have about 31% who have opted to vote by mail this year. And that number is about double what it was in the previous election. So let's take a look at the Yacht Club, that precinct, and you can see the various neighborhoods. I'm going to come back to those neighborhoods in just a moment. But for the Yacht Club, we have 500 vote by mail registered voters in that particular precinct. Then let's jump up to Westminster Presbyterian Church, that particular precinct. And again, I'll be going over the neighborhoods that serves. We have 576 vote by mail precincts there. And then let's take a look at White Oak Elementary School. We have 504 vote by mail registered voters there. And then our last precinct is Calvary Community Church. And that totals 207 vote by mail registered voters. So at this time, I'd like to ask Beth Schott, who, as I said, is our city clerk, and she is just finishing up some work with the accuracy and logic tests with the help of Martin and Chapman, and Patty Thompson, who is our deputy city clerk. And I wanted to take a moment and start with Beth. We're going to be filling in some time with some what we hope will be some informative interviews on the election process and also on other city activities. And so tonight we're going to first start with Beth, and we're going to talk a little bit about the vote by mail process and how that's handled. So Beth, maybe you could take just a moment and fill us in as to how that process really unfolds.
The permanent vote by mail voters, they have already signed up to be a permanent voter by mail with the county, and their ballots are mailed to them directly, and they mail in their ballots to the city, at which time they are then processed with a signature verification process. In addition to that, a registered voter who's not a permanent vote-by-mail voter can request a ballot to vote by mail. That request is sent into the city, and the city processes mailing out the ballot to the voter, and then that ballot is then voted and returned to the city. We have a link through a computer program with the county where we verify the signature of the voter with the record that the county has for that voter to be sure that they are, in fact, the voter. And after that is done, then the ballots are eventually then brought into the room here where they will be counted momentarily.
Great. Well, thank you for that explanation. In addition to your responsibilities as the election official, your real job during the course of a business day is serving as city clerk. Can you tell us a little bit about what your roles and responsibilities are?
As the city clerk, in addition to being the elections official, I also maintain all official city records in compliance with federal, state, and local laws. I record and maintain the proceedings of the city council meetings, attest, post, index, and file the city ordinances and resolutions, coordinate the municipal elections, prepare, one of the fun things I do is I get to prepare all of the plaques and presentations that are presented by the city council. I file affidavits of completion, assemble the city council packets for their council meetings. And that's just a few of the things that I do.
Thanks, Beth. We're going to take just a moment here and just follow what's going on here. I believe that 2 precincts have been run so far, just one, and we're in the process of running a second one. We'll continue to get through that. Let's take a look again at the precinct maps, or precinct map that we have. As we've indicated, we have 4 precincts. The Yacht Club polling place is served by a number of neighborhoods, and they include the Sycamore Canyon Estates development, 3 Springs, Parkwood Estates, Westlake Terrace, and the Upper Terrace, and South Shore. In total, there are, let me see here, for that particular precinct, there are a total of 1,118 registered voters in that precinct. And jumping up to the Westminster Church polling place, that includes the following neighborhoods. First neighborhood, a portion of it, Westlake Colony, Watergate, Lake Shore, Westlake Island, and the Westlake Cove. And again, the polling place is the Westminster Church. As we take a look at the total number of registered voters in that precinct, it totals 1,359. And I think I had mentioned earlier that we have 576 vote-by-mail voters there, registered there. Then let's take a look at White Oak Elementary School. As you can well imagine, White Oak Elementary School serves the First Neighborhood Homeowners Association, the largest portion of it. West Park, Oak Forest Estates, Westlake Trails, Southridge Trails, Westlake Point, and Summer Shore. Altogether, we have 1,200 voters, registered voters in that particular precinct, 504 vote by mail. And then lastly, our 4th polling place is Calvary Community Church, and we have a total of 461 registered voters there. It serves the Westlake Canyon Oaks neighborhood and the Westlake Renaissance, and we have 207 vote-by-mail registered voters out of that precinct as well. So this evening we're going to be counting First, the vote by mail ballots, which under the Elections Code, we're permitted to count those immediately following the close of the polls at 8 o'clock, which was approximately 15, 16 minutes ago. And as you can well imagine right now, I'm sure that the precinct inspectors, the 4 precinct inspectors and the 4 precinct workers, or three precinct assistants are busy trying to finish up their work and their paperwork. They started about 6 a.m. this morning with their work, setting up their polling places, getting their booths set up and their tables, and polls opened at 7 a.m. And so they worked a fairly long day, and we had 16 volunteers, precinct workers that assisted us this year, which was terrific. And I would say that if anyone is interested who's watching our live coverage this evening that would wish to be involved in the election process, I've just got the person that you should go see, and that would be Beth Schott, our city clerk and our election official. Beth, can you talk a little bit about the poll workers class that took place that Martin and Chapman handled for us, what they discussed with the poll workers, because we don't just sign up poll workers and then send them off to their duties. So they had a little bit of a workshop about a week ago.
Yes, a representative from Martin and Chapman does come to the city to meet with the poll workers about a week before the election, and they go through the entire process with them from the start to finish, all the supplies that they receive, how they will process the ballots, passing them out to each of the voters, what they do with them when they come back, if there's a problem with one, how that's handled. So it's a very extensive seminar workshop that is conducted, and all of our poll workers, except 2 this year, have worked several elections in the past, so they're all very seasoned as to how the process operates.
Well, continuing with the discussion about our election process and our election primer this evening, let's talk a little bit about how the election really gets started. You know, as I mentioned at the outset this evening, the city operates its election based strictly on the state elections code. And that code section is 10266. For the city of Westlake Village, we have elections in odd-numbered years. This would be our 15th election since incorporation in 1981. It stands to reason we're 30 years old, and we hold an election every 2 years in odd-numbered years. And the councilmatic terms are staggered. This year, there are 2 seats open, I think we mentioned earlier. And in 2 years hence, there'll be three seats open. As I mentioned, this would be the 15th election. We've had 2 that were canceled in the 2005, I believe, and 2009, because we only had the same number of candidates as we had seats open. So I see we're running, I believe, our 4th vote by mail precinct, and so we should have results to announce here shortly. So with the fact that we've got elections every odd-numbered years, how does the process start, Beth? What happens to kick off the election in those years?
The first step is for the city council to adopt 2 resolutions. One is to call and give notice of the holding of the election, and the second resolution is to determine that the city will operate its own election. The next step is for the potential candidates to come in and meet with me, at which time I issue a candidate election guide to each candidate, and this is full of lots of information for the candidates, starting with their nomination paper, of which they need to collect no more than 30, but no less than 20 signatures of other registered voters within the city. Once they have done that, they submit that back to my office. The signatures on that form are verified through the county, and then they start proceeding with their candidacy if they are, in fact, certified as a candidate. So that's how the whole ball gets rolling.
So the nomination process is pretty straightforward. For residents that are interested in running for city council, there's no cost really to file. I think actually there is a deposit, I believe, isn't there, taken for the candidate statement. Candidate statement has a maximum word limit of, is it, I've forgotten that, 200 words? 200. And that's carefully looked at. The process is fairly straightforward, and it is not that difficult really to run for city council. Probably the more difficult aspect of that, if you ask the candidates, would be what comes after that, which is the election itself and all the campaigning. So once the nomination process occurs, then we get in the process of selecting precincts. And as we've indicated, we've got 4 precincts, and they're geographically, we try to keep the precincts, as I recall, about equal in terms of the number of registered voters. Now, it may differ from time to time when the county holds an election or a consolidated election. Their polling places may be slightly different, but ours have pretty much stayed the same over the last several elections, as I recall. So precinct workers, we've talked about their training and what goes on with that. The election day activities, can you give us a little bit of insight about what your day was like as the election official in terms of trying to manage the various precincts and the polling places?
Well, as like the poll workers, my day did start quite early today. I was here at City Hall at 7 a.m. Because City Hall is actually considered a polling location because we are the vote by mail, and voters could have dropped off their ballots here at City Hall. So, and we wanted to make sure our phones were open at 7 a.m. in case a voter needed to find where their polling place was, whether they're a registered voter. We spent the day answering those sorts of questions. I took a couple of trips out to visit the polls today, and a visit with the poll workers to make sure everything was running smoothly. And in one instance, one of the polls was running short on a little bit of their supplies for some envelopes. I was able to borrow them from another polling location and deliver them. So all in all, I think all was running quite smoothly out there today.
That's terrific. Well, I was just told that we have the vote by mail ballots processed. So at this time, let's move to the election board and see if we can get those posted here. We'll have those momentarily. And there you have them. Let me just run through those very quickly. I'm seeing them at the same time you are. Let's take a look at the bottom numbers first. We have the 3 candidates listed, and those are in the order that they're listed in the ballot as provided by the Secretary of State's office. And then to the very far right, we have the results of Measure K. Now again, this is vote by mail, and we have a total of 1,389 votes cast. And going from left to right, those numbers include 423 for Philippa Klessig, or 30.5%. For Chris Mann, they totaled 405, 29.2%. And for Ned Davis, 561, or 40.4%. And then looking again from left to right for Measure K, we're showing 404 votes for yes and 417 for no. Now let's take a look and delve into this a little bit more in detail. Let's look at each candidate and at each polling place or precinct and go from left to right and take a look at that. For the Calvary precinct, we had 36 votes cast for Philippa Klessig, or 24%. For Chris Mann, 63 votes for 42%. And for Ned Davis, 52 votes, 34%. And then finally, for Measure K, 39 votes for it and 55 against it. For Westminster, second polling location and precinct, going again from left to right, we had 159 votes cast for Philippa Klessig, which represented 34% of all those votes cast in the Westminster precinct. 115 votes cast for Chris Mann, representing 25%. And then moving over to Ned Davis, 187 votes cast, or 41% of all the votes cast in that particular precinct. For the Measure K, it was very close, 135 yes votes and 135 no votes. Going to our third precinct, White Oak Elementary School, 126 votes were cast for Philippa Klessig, representing 30% of all votes cast in that precinct. 118 votes cast for Chris Mann, representing 28%. And 176 votes cast for Ned Davis, representing 42%. And looking at Measure K, 126 yes votes and 118 no votes. And then lastly, looking at our last precinct for the vote by mail count this evening, for Philippa Klessig, 102 votes, representing 29%. For Chris Mann, 109 votes, representing 31%. Ned Davis, 146 votes at 41%. Measure K, 104 votes in that precinct, and the Yacht Club totaled 110 votes against that measure. So that's our first reporting this evening. We have 4 more precincts to report. This again will be rather fluid this evening. The reporting will really be dictated again by how quickly each precinct buttons up their activities and ends up coming to City Hall to deliver their ballot box. Beth Schott reports that she's not heard any ringing on her telephone, and we're asking each inspector to give a call. Well, that may be a problem then. So I told you this would be a fluid process. I think we have as a city council goal to improve cell service, and I think that may be a classic example of why we need to improve cell service. So again, let me announce for those of you that are just tuning in to our live coverage this evening, we're going to be interviewing our election boards in just a moment. So I'd like our election personnel to gather at their reporting stations. But just again to talk a little bit about where our results are for vote by mail. Again, 423 votes were cast for Philippa Klessig, representing 30.5% of all votes cast vote by mail. 405 votes cast for Chris Mann, representing 29.2%, and 561 votes cast for Ned Davis, representing 40.4%. For Measure K, the preliminary results this evening for the vote by mail first count this evening, 404 votes yes, 417 votes no. So we'll come back to the election results in just a few minutes, but in the meantime, what I'd like to do is take us over and introduce our various election officials that, did I hear a ring? No, it was somebody else's ringing out in the audience. Larry, get that phone fixed, will you? All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about what each election board does. There are 4 this evening. And first we're going to take a look at our big burly guys over here. This is our ballot receiving board, and their responsibilities will be to make sure that the ballot boxes collected in a safe manner when the precincts report. So I'm going to allow each of them introduce themselves and just tell us a little bit about what they're doing this evening.
Thanks, Ray. My name is Kerry Coleman. I'm the administrative analyst here at the city, and tonight I'm part of the ballot receiving and container inspection board. I'll be working with Rick. I'll let Rick introduce himself.
Hi there, my name is Rick Caswell. I'm usually the assistant planner when I'm not doing this. Tonight, essentially, our role, we're going to be assisting the precinct boards remove the election materials from their cars and ensure that they have everything. This is going to include a red box full of voted ballots. There'll be a green line envelope containing vote by mail ballots, and then a white box containing any spoiled or unused ballots that may have occurred somewhere along the line. Additionally, any kind of other extra materials like flags and other kind of general polling station materials, we'll be removing those and putting them to storage. And then beyond that, Kerry can enlighten us with a little more information. I'll pass it over right now.
Thanks, Rick. And once we bring the information inside, we'll be inspecting the ballot boxes. It's the red box, making sure they're sealed, checking in that they've put the number of ballots that have come in, signing off on those. Once again, checking that they're sealed before we pass them on to the next board. So those are the two duties that we'll be performing tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. I think you're up to the task. You're both in pretty good shape. I think you'll be able to carry those ballot boxes in without much trouble. So thanks for all your help this evening. Next, we're going to go to our ballot inspection board. And this is our two Carols, Carol Novak and Carol Kramer. And I'm going to ask them just to very briefly touch on what they're going to be doing this evening.
Yes, Ray. I'm Carol Novak. I am the accountant for the city. Tonight we will be inspecting ballots to make sure that they are not damaged or bent, torn, that they will not jam the ballot reading or counting machine. And I will let Carol Kramer tell us about a little more of our inspection duties.
Hi, I'm Carol Kramer, and I'm an administrative assistant here at the city. Aside from that, we'll also be looking to make sure that the ballot was marked correctly. For instance, if there was an X marked, instead of filling in the circle, we'll make sure that to mark over it with a marker so that the ballot is counted in the machine, otherwise it doesn't get read.
Good. So you're going to be very carefully looking at every ballot. In the old days, when it was the punch card ballots, we all remember the hanging chad, and the cards would have to be sort of turned very carefully up into the light to make sure that there was no hanging chad, which would end up causing a problem and jamming the ballot counter. But we don't have that sort of ballot this time around, so we won't have that issue. So we have two very capable ballot inspection personnel that do a wonderful job for the city of Westlake Village in their own right, in their own daily jobs here for the city, and we very much appreciate their work tonight. We talked a little bit about the accuracy and logic test and the ballot processing board, which is handled by our representatives from Martin and Chapman. And we have with us this evening Patty Thompson, who is our deputy city clerk. And Patty, what's your feeling? How'd the election day go today, do you think?
The election day went very well today. It started very early, as Beth said earlier. We checked in on the polling places, and everything went really, really very smoothly. Today, it's an exciting day when you have an election and do it in-house. It's something different for all of us, and certainly we've all learned a lot as we've done it.
Okay, thank you. All right, now I'd like to introduce our ballot storage and sealing board. This is the final board that we have, and all of these activities that you see, the various functions, are all prescribed by the state elections code. And while this may not sound like a very exciting board, and I'm sure it's not terribly exciting, it is nonetheless very important. So I'd like to have our two election officials introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about what they do or what their position is with the city and what their role and responsibility is tonight.
Thank you, Ray. My name is Brianne Anderson. Normally, I am the Community Services Coordinator for the City of Westlake Village. And of course, the ballot storage and sealing is an important table. We get to watch these boxes as they come and sit and watch them and make sure nothing happens to them all night. And then at the end, once we are secure and know that they are still have those numbers that are written on the top and know that nothing has happened to them at the end of the night, we get to put a seal over them and send them into lock and key storage with Beth, our election official. So we are an important table, even though it doesn't sound like that much, but we're important. And I get to work all night with John Knipe, so that's the extra special part about being at this table.
I think it's the other way around.
Oh, well, there you go.
Thank you very much for that introduction. And I'm John Knipe, the city engineer. Normally my duties are as the city engineer and handling the respective duties throughout the Public Works Department for the city. And tonight we'll be finishing up and concluding the wrap-up on each box.
Great. Thank you very much. I'm sure you two will do a wonderful job tonight. All right. So that leads us to an opportunity to spend a little bit of time this evening with some interviews. We talked to Beth Schott, our city official in charge of the election this evening, but we couldn't do this election really without the assistance of the firm of Martin and Chapman. We've been working with Martin and Chapman for years and years, and they are one of the premier election firms in all of California, in the western United States, and they handle just a number of different elections and provide a number of very valuable services to cities and counties and special districts that otherwise would be very difficult to come by. I introduced Gary Pocarina, who is with Martin and Chapman, earlier this evening, and I'd like to have Gary tell us a little bit about himself, how long he's been with the company, and then we'll talk a little bit about what Martin and Chapman actually does. Gary?
Well, I'm a long timer. I've been with Martin and Chapman for 36 years now. Started in 1975 after I come out of the service, and I've been with them ever since. It's been a good company to work for. We've seen a change in the voting process over the 36 years. It's tremendous. From paper ballots marking with a little X rubber stamp to what we do now with automation and optical scan. We had the problem with Chad, as you know, in Florida, and that put the big stir in our election business, so everything changed. Now, all elections we possibly have done these days is all optical scan, and that's pretty much our company. We do county elections, municipals, water, just like everything that's involved with the state. And we are state certified, so everything is 100% accurate as we can make it.
Gary, the election process has evolved over the years. It was just in 2007, for example, the vote by mail process was called absentee votes, and the state made a change with that. There have been other changes in terms of probably more and more we're seeing vote by mail activity across the state and across the country. We've seen a pickup of over 50% in terms of vote by mail in our little hamlet in corner of the world right here in Westlake Village. Can you tell us a little bit about what you see as some of the changes that are emerging in the election field? So clearly, technology is playing a role with respect to that, and more vote by mail processes, but do you see anything else happening out there?
Well, like he said, we are seeing a big swing towards vote by mail, and we just got done doing some county elections for this for the state, and we printed over 60% vote by mail. So that's basically going to show you that vote by mail is coming to be a big thing, and I think within the next maybe 5-10 years, the whole process is going to be vote by mail because it's slowly swinging that way. So, and that's one of the big changes we're seeing. Other changes that we've seen is the DOJ has come in And we do 10 languages on in some of these cities so everybody can vote. And that's been a big change in our company as far as translators, getting everything out in different languages to everybody so everybody can vote. And that's the biggest change I've seen like in the past 10 years. And basically ever since we start doing our Optimart scan, it's just been so easily processing ballots now instead of the punch cards. We have no, like you said, no more hanging chad. Everything's 100% accuracy, so it's just a great system that we do offer.
The DOJ, you're meaning the Department of Justice is requiring that, sure. Some of the other services that Martin and Chapman provide, I believe, include just daily assistance to elections clerks, election officials like Beth Schott, interpreting sections of the elections code, because it is a fairly arcane, rather thick booklet that does change too from year to year based on changes by the state legislature signed by the governor. You also, I believe, you provide all sorts of election supplies, running the gamut from nomination forms to all of the supplies that we will see that we saw today at our polling places. And you're involved as well, I think, in the processing of the nomination papers. You will take the wording for the ballot measures or the whatever ends up being a candidate statement, and you will print those and assemble the sample ballots and mail those out on behalf of the city as well. And then I think you provide all of the supplies for the vote by mail process as well. So all good stuff, lots of full service, it appears, and certainly we've been very delighted. And I know when I was with the City of Rolling Hills Estates and the City of Malibu, we contracted with your firm as well. So you have a long wonderful track history and with cities. So thank you very much. We appreciate it, and we'll be looking forward to your work on finishing up. Okay, we're going to go back again to the election results as we have them right now, and following that, we're going to see an interview with our city engineer, John Knipe, on some current projects, just to provide a little bit of information during this lull until we have more precincts reporting. So let's go back to the election board. We have vote by mail ballots counted this evening, a total of 1,389 votes cast in that manner. And right now, going from left to right, Philippa Klessig received 423 votes, or 30.5%. For Chris Mann, 405 votes, 29.2% of all votes cast by vote by mail. And then lastly, Ned Davis, 561 votes at 40.4%. Measure K right now is trending with 417 no votes and 404 yes votes. So, John Knipe, our city engineer. John, thank you for being here tonight. We wanted to talk a little bit about some of the major capital projects that are ongoing. I do hear in the background a telephone ring, so we may have another precinct reporting here soon. But until then, let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the city from your perspective. John has been city engineer essentially since the city incorporated, I think, almost, going way back some 30 years ago. And John is well-respected city engineer, not only in the city of Westlake Village, but has provided a number of service to other jurisdictions as well, including the city of Malibu at one point in time. John, what is happening? We have a lot of road construction occurring at the intersection of Agoura Road and Lindero Canyon Road. What the heck's happening there?
Thank you, Ray, and good evening, everyone. Probably other than having my name taken in vain by a number of people driving through the intersection, we're working on the improving the efficiency and capacity of that intersection. We've added a new bridge so that we now have dual right turn, westbound right turn lanes. We have dual eastbound left turn lanes provided already, And right now, the final phase of that work is being completed here as we speak, and that's going to provide a shift in the easterly side of the intersection to the medians, and then we'll realign all the striping in that area. So it's going to be done with the landscaping and everything probably in the next 3 to 4 weeks.
Have you seen any significant traffic issues that have been generated as a result of that work at this point? And what steps have we undertaken to try to ease the traffic through that intersection?
One of the things that's a major goal for the City Council is always to make sure that the community is well informed in advance. And one of the things that we did with this project at the very beginning is put out lighted or lit message boards. And we also put out at the very beginning of the project, well in advance, signage telling the community about the work, and you might have possible delays. And probably the most significant traffic that we've seen is just lately with this last phase, and that's early in the morning. In the morning, what we call the morning peak, right around 7:30 to 8:30 in the morning, we have a very heavy traffic coming into southbound on Lindero off of the freeway and going to work and making that southbound left turn onto Agoura Road. And we've had the lit message boards, and there has been some backups for about a 15-minute period each morning, but it seems to be working pretty well. And luckily, this phase will be over with as far as that morning congestion here in the next week or two.
Great. Well, we appreciate the fact that our residents have been patient and very careful as they proceed to and through that intersection during this time frame. This project is part of an overall master plan for the improvement of the Lindero Canyon Road corridor, which was started some years ago. And the whole goal of that was the city realized that there was going to be significant development north of the freeway on major undeveloped land that was targeted for certain development under the general plan and the zoning ordinance. So this long-range plan called our Arterial System Finance Plan was developed with the notion that the city was going to need to undertake improvements to this corridor so that traffic flow would at least be minimized in terms of traffic backups, and we would have at least decent levels of service or operation at most of the intersections along that corridor. Can you tell us about some of the past improvements that have occurred with that along that corridor? Maybe give everyone at home an opportunity to hear just how this project has evolved in that manner.
Thank you. Actually, it's a very long period of time. The first studies for this far-reaching development that's occurred over this time was performed back in 1989, and the council finally adopted this plan in 1991. So we've been carrying it out for a number of years. Now, it's been based on and financed by developers' trip fees, under this Arterial System Finance Plan, or ASFP as we refer to it a lot of times, and everybody likes to use acronyms. But some of the improvements that we've seen here are the addition of a type 1 bicycle lane north of the freeway on the easterly side that we see extending from alongside the Marriott Hotel all the way up to Thousand Oaks Boulevard. We've had a number of signals installed as part of this program along Lindero. The main emphasis area or project area for this program is along Lindero from Thousand Oaks Boulevard down to Agoura Road. More recently, in the last few years, we've had the major freeway work at the ramp, at the northbound ramp where we put in those retaining walls, which we're very proud of because each of those walls carries the city's symbol of a sailboat on it. And those sailboats are probably between 8 and 10 feet high. So it's quite an aesthetic treatment to what would normally be a very blah-looking wall. And we've added and highlighted those walls with cracked rib effect along with the sailboats. And that's probably our biggest one. And then the next one that we just talked to a little bit ago was the intersection improvements. And then finally, what we're going to be doing here is some improvements starting early next calendar year in 2012 over the freeway bridge. And that's actually the Lindero Bridge over the freeway will receive some significant improvements. We'll be taking out the center median, redoing both of the metal or the concrete barriers on both sides. We'll be adding aesthetic treatments to this barrier both inside and outside. And also in taking out the median, we'll be adding a travel lane in each direction for added capacity. So it's not only going to have more capacity over the bridge, but we're going to have it looking very nice.
Lots of improvements and more on the way here in the next calendar year. Let's conclude our discussion about this this project, this arterial system finance program, with just a word or two about the financing of it. The City of Westlake Village has been very fortunate to obtain funding through the county to cover the lion's share of this cost. So maybe you can just make a few comments about that, John, and we'll conclude our discussion on that and move on to another topic.
The city has been very, very fortunate. I don't think I can overemphasize that. As I mentioned before, we've had developer payments, but more significantly than that, probably has been the county, Los Angeles County through MTA offers what's called a call for project. And in that, the city received over $8.5 million towards this ASFP, or the Arterial System Finance Plan. And then more recently, with the voter approval in late 2008 of Measure R, the city is receiving another $9.5 million in addition to that. So that is, as Ray says, it's paying for a significant portion of our overall program for this, these highway improvements.
Great, thanks, John. Let's turn our attention now to one other project that is caught the attention of the region as a whole, because as you drive by on the 101 freeway and you see some slopes that have been scalped, what in the world is going on with that? And of course, we know that's our community park project and joint project with the Triumphal YMCA. That project is coming to fruition. Even as we speak here, the infrastructure improvements have just about been completed. We know that it's a project that will be constructed in two phases. The first phase is the construction of the master pad, which I'm going to ask you about in just a moment. And the second phase, which the timing is still undetermined, will include the above-ground park improvements and the construction of a new Triumphal YMCA in the center of that project. Altogether, we will see a total of 8 acres of sports fields, lighted sports fields, and with our agreement with the Canyon Oaks neighborhood, those lights will go off promptly at 9 o'clock when the evening arrives. We will see other activities besides sports activities there. We have a trail that will be designed all the way around the perimeter of that park. The site, I believe, is around 19 acres. The pad is about 19 acres. And there'll be a sand volleyball court. There'll be a skate park designed into it, hopefully. There'll be other elements, outdoor basketball courts in the parking lot, baseball, softball fields, and soccer fields, and then other general purpose fields for field hockey and football and the like. So lots of good stuff going on with that project. We'll also include a special area that sort of overlooks the park. It's a small area, but can be a meditative area. It could be an area for picnics, gatherings, even weddings. For those of you in the audience and at home who have not had a chance to really become familiar with this project, we will see the parking lot constructed in this next calendar year and the ingress and egress road. And there will be a wonderful opportunity with a big sort of event to get the community up to that site, because the views are absolutely unparalleled. The site sits, I believe, about 115 feet above the Thousand Oaks Boulevard. and you can see from east to west just magnificent views. But how did we get to this project, John? I mean, we could talk a little bit about the background and the joint use agreement and so on, and all the work that went into that. But maybe we'll save that for another time. But let's talk from an engineering point of view. What went into that project to create that 19-acre pad? How did we go about doing that?
The park project has been a very long, evolving project over the last several years. And one of the first things that we did with a challenging site with so much difference in topography is to study what that site could hold and how we could maintain it, because one of our first goals that we were able to accomplish is what we have known as a balanced site. By a balanced graded site is everything stays on site, nothing left the site. And we moved approximately 2 million cubic yards of dirt to develop that 19-acre pad. We have 32 acres of graded slope and 19 acres of flat pad for the future park and YMCA building. So with that, we also have a significant amount of drainage facilities, on-site water detention for stormwater runoff and clarity. Utilities, we probably have in excess of 25,000 linear feet of 8 different utilities to service the site. Everything from fiber optics to potable and reclaimed water, as well as sewer. So a lot's gone into the project. We've taken it in different steps. We did the grading and drainage to begin with, and then we took on the utilities. We took it in sequential steps by the type of trades. And then the pump stations have been built for the water delivery and the reclaimed water delivery. And now what you see going up is the planting and irrigation of the perimeter slopes. And that's that 32 acres surrounding the pad. So we hope to have that done here in the next couple of months and see our hills green and turn to natural chaparral here soon.
Now, there was a slight delay in the restoration of the slopes, unfortunately. No fault of anybody in particular. It's certainly not with the city or in that matter. But could you just allude to what happened with that slight delay and about when we think we're going to see the slopes fully restored?
Yes, one of the things that I think we can what draws attention to this delay is our original landscape contractor going bankrupt, which was a very unfortunate situation. It does happen occasionally, but the city had 100% payment bonds to cover the work and performance bonds. So the bonding company for this contractor has made the city whole, so the city has not incurred any additional cost. However, what we have seen is about a 7-8 month delay. Now, having said that, we think that the initial construction and everything will be planted because as we speak, all the irrigation has been placed. So we feel that the initial plantings will be done by mid-January, and then after that, the contractor will be maintaining the site for another 6 months. So come this January, we'll see it, germination and actual growth on the slopes. We're expecting to see the first ones, which are those slopes in the back, probably showing some production here in mid-February.
I see that we have the Calvary Community Church polling place and precinct reporting with our 2 burly city employees carrying in the materials. I knew they would not have any trouble whatsoever in carrying the ballot boxes and other materials. And so just in a few short minutes, we will begin the process of counting those ballots. And in the meantime, I want to continue my interview with John Knipe. Let's conclude, John. We've got with one last project I want to talk about, and that is the work that's going to take place on Agoura Road from Lindero Canyon Road east to the city limit line with the city of Agoura Hills. We're going to see some improvements to the median, the entire median, and then we're going to see improvements to all of Agoura Road from the east city limits to the west city limits. Can you tell us a little bit about what's going on there?
We have a number of projects planned for Agoura Road this year, starting with the finishing of the intersection improvements. And then also this year we have planned and budgeted for the complete grinding and overlay of the full length of Agoura Road, just a little over a mile long, all the way from the western boundary with of the city with Thousand Oaks to the eastern boundary with Agoura Hills. And that's going to take about 4 months, and we look for that to start probably in mid to late January. Now, what you're probably experiencing if you drive the number 1 or closest to the median lane, you're hitting a lot of bumps. And those are the root intrusions from our historic, if you will, pine trees, which are very important to the community. And so to preserve them, we'll be removing those root boils in the pavement specifically before we start work of the actual grinding and overlay. Following that work, right behind it is going to be some median work, which is similar to what we've already completed a year and a half ago west of Lindero Canyon Road, and more currently with the intersection improvements on both sides. And what we have is the second phase of Agoura Road median, so that'll also be going on, as well as some lighting improvements to our advanced street name signs. So that'll be coming along. So that's going to probably take us through the end of the current fiscal year in June this year.
All right. Well, thank you very much, John, for enlightening on us with what's happening out there in the way of public works and all sorts of things going on. All good, and we very much appreciate your time this evening. We've got Calvary Community Church that we'll be processing here shortly. And I think we're going to be moving to the ballot materials have come in. It's been received by our ballot receiving board, and it will now move to the ballot inspection board and be opened and the ballots inspected as we talked about earlier. Let me just go back very quickly to our election results in case you're just tuning in this evening. We have counted all of our vote by mail ballots that we have this evening. And let's take a look at those totals, both for the Westlake Village City Council race as well as the Las Virgenes Unified School District Measure K parcel tax measure. Let's look first, going left to right. Philippa Klessig has received 423 votes so far with the vote by mail ballots, or representing 30.5%. For Chris Mann, a total of 405 votes have been received, or 29.2%. And for Ned Davis, 561 votes, or 40.4% of the total vote by mail ballots. And for Measure K, we have 404 votes cast as yes, and 417 no votes. So that's our recap of where we are through the vote by mail ballots, with total votes cast at this point in time of 1,389. Now, before we go to our next interview, I just wanted to take us back, take a little historical look at what's happened in the past in our elections in the city of Westlake Village. We've had 15 election dates. We've conducted 13 general municipal elections. The first one goes back to incorporation in 1981, when the city was first operating and became a new city in LA County. At that point in time, when a new city is voted on by its potential residents or voters within the jurisdiction, there are candidates that are also voted on at the same time. There were probably over a dozen candidates in that first election, way back in 1981. That first council was Irwin Shane. And by the way, we're looking at total ballots cast back in 1981 of a little over 2,100. Irwin Shane was elected, as was Franklin Pelletier, Bernice Bennett, John McDonough, and Bonnie Clove. And so that represents the first city council 30 years ago when the city incorporated. 2 years later, in 1985, because there's a period where that first council serves a few extra years, we had 3 council seats open. And some of you may remember some of these council members. Bonnie Clove was reelected. Irwin Shane was reelected, and as was Franklin Pelletier. 2 years later, in 1987, we had 3 candidates that were up for election. Let's take a look at the total ballots cast that year, 1,604. And in that year, we had a new council member elected, Kenneth Ruffner, and Bernice Bennett was reelected. Moving to 1989, we had 1,414 ballots cast in that particular election. We had 6 candidates running during that period of time. We had newly elected Jim Emmons and Doug Yarrow at that time, and Bonnie Clove was reelected. 1991, 2 incumbents were reelected that year, both long-running council members, Ken Ruffner and Bernice Bennett. 1993, we saw 5 candidates, with Chris Carraway newly elected that particular year, Doug Yarrow reelected, as was Jim Emmons. 2 years later, 1995, we had 2 new council members that particular year out of a total of 5. Total ballots cast that year, mid-1990s, was 1,764. And the results of the election showed that Jim Henderson was elected, a longtime resident in the First Neighborhood area, and Betty DeSantis in that particular year. 1997, we saw 4 candidates, and we saw a new council member elected whose name is Mark Rutherford, who is here in the audience. Chris Carraway Bowman was reelected that year, and we had a new candidate as well that year that was elected, Iraj Brumond. In 1999, we had 3 candidates run. We had Betty DeSantis, who was reelected at the time, and Chris Mann was selected that year. There were 1,476 ballots cast that particular year. And then in 2001, we had a couple of new candidates, newly elected council members. Some of you may know, and I see them in the audience tonight, at least a couple of them. Sue McSweeney was elected that particular year. Mark Rutherford was reelected, and Bob Slavin was elected for the very first time that year. And then let's take a look at 2003. We had 3 candidates running for city council. Back in 2003, we had 1,258 ballots cast, and we had 2 new council members, Philippa Klessig and Jim Bruno. And moving to 2005, we had 3 incumbents running, and we had 3 seats open and only 3 incumbents running, and so all were reappointed: Mark Rutherford, Sue McSweeney, and Bob Slavin. In 2006, the city conducted a special election at that time, and it dealt with Measure Z, which was the Lowe's issue, and that vote total in that particular year was 1,720 that voted yes in favor of Measure Z, and 2,199 that voted against Measure Z. And getting more recent times, in 2007, we had a new council member elected for the first time, and that was Ned Davis, and Philippa Klessig was reelected that particular year. Then again, in 2009, we had 3 seats open and 3 candidates. They were all the incumbents. Mark Rutherford, Sue McSweeney, and Bob Slavin, and they were all reappointed. And by the way, the Elections Code allows for that. If you only have the same number, if you have the same number of seats as you do candidates, or it's the same number of candidates as you have open seats, the city can forego the election and save in election costs, which, by the way, this year will total approximately $30,000 to operate our municipal election. So that brings us up to the current time, 2011, and we're here live with coverage of our election results. And our city clerk informs me that the yacht club is reporting and should be here shortly. So we're in the process now of counting the Calvary Community Church precinct. And at this time, what I'd like to do in about a minute or so is just take a break. And we'll come back with live coverage as soon as we've finished up the counting of our ballots. Or are we finished here, John? We finished with our... Oh, okay. Well, you know what? We're not going to go to break. I apologize. We're going to stay live here because I think we're going to be reporting here just momentarily with Calvary Community Church. The screen has gone dark, and I see that our staff is in the process of inputting the voting results, so we'll have those for you in just a moment. So far, we hope you've enjoyed our election coverage. This is a little new to us. In years past, the county handled our elections, and this year, the city is taking that function over. Actually, this is the couple times now that we've done that. We've handled the election in-house as opposed to having the county provide the election and consolidate with them. The advantage of that is there's a couple of major advantages. One is that I think the city council feels that there's a little more of an election excitement in the community when you conduct your own election rather than having the county do that. Of course, election results are reported much earlier. When you consolidate with the county, and you can well imagine with 88 cities in Los Angeles County, and a number of cities are holding elections this evening, what happens is the county will finish up their precincts in each city, and they will collect all of the ballot boxes from the various precincts in that particular city. And then they will make a drive, a little trek out to Norwalk where they actually do the counting. So depending on how quickly precincts close up shop and finish up their work, how quickly the ballot boxes can be picked up, and how quickly they can be transported to Norwalk, we would see election results. And when you have, and you do this by alphabetical order, Westlake Village, of course, is probably next to last, if not last. Our election results would be reported maybe at midnight if we were lucky, maybe by 2 a.m. if we were lucky. So one of the advantages of doing this process, having it handled in-house, is we begin to see election results right at around 8:15 this evening when we saw the vote by mail ballots, and then here we are at 9:15, and I think we're just about ready to be able to report the Calvary Community Precinct. Okay, let's show those. This is our this is our next precinct. This is Calvary Community Church precinct. And let's take a look. The new number there that you see is the actual votes cast in that precinct by candidate next to the vote by mail numbers, which will obviously not change this evening, but the precinct numbers will as precincts report. So going left to right, let's look at the bottom total first. Right now, we have 437 votes cast for Philippa Klessig, or 29.2%. For Chris Mann, 453 votes, or 30.3%. For Ned Davis, 605 votes, 40.5%. And coming in for Measure K, right now there are 431 votes cast for yes, and on the no side, 457. Now let's go back up to the Calvary precinct and take a look at the numbers going left to right. 14 votes cast for Philippa Klessig, 48 votes cast for Chris Mann. And by the way, those percentages are total votes now cast cumulative for both vote by mail and precinct reporting. And for Ned Davis, 44 votes cast, or 37%. And then let's look at the yes count for Measure K, 27 votes. The no count for Measure K as it relates to voting only within the city of Westlake Village, 40 no votes. So there we have the current election results with vote by mail counted so far and 1 precinct reporting with 3 to go. So with that summary right now, I think we'll go to a break for the time being until we see the next precinct report, and we'll come back with live coverage when we have the results ready for that. And we'll also continue with some of the interviews that we have planned for you this evening with some city discussion on some city programs and projects of interest to you. So I think we're just about ready to go to a brief recess here, and I think we're just about there. Okay, thank you very much. Welcome back to our live coverage of the 2011 general municipal election for the city of Westlake Village. We're delighted you're joining us this evening. So far, we have had vote by mail ballots counted, as well as one precinct. And in just a few moments, we're going to have our second precinct reporting with results placed on our election board in a matter of just a couple of moments. I wanted to finish my remarks about the advantages of having the city run its own election. We talked a little bit about the election results coming back earlier than they would otherwise with the county. The other huge advantage to the community at large, and I say at large, I'm really talking about the Conejo Valley, is the fact that the Las Virgenes Unified School District can allow their election to be consolidated with our election, thereby precluding having the county operate their election as it relates to Westlake Village. So when we operate our own election, what happens is that we're piggybacking, or I should say the school district is piggybacking onto our process, and there are no extra costs to the district in doing that. So we're basically saving the school district about $30,000 by operating our own election, which is another tremendous advantage to doing it besides some of the advantages I talked about earlier. Now, joining us for our next interview is Larry Savaboda, who is one of our inspectors, or one of our precinct workers. And Larry is also a very active member of our disaster response team, and we're going to talk to Larry a little bit about that in just a moment. But this gives us a wonderful opportunity to talk to one of our precinct volunteers and sort of get a sense of how the day went from his perspective, whether there were any issues and so on, and what his roles and responsibilities were. So Larry, tell us a little bit about what you did today. What time did you get up? It looks like it was a long day. You look a little tired, but remarkably good-spirited after a long day. Tell us about how the day started, what happened at 6:30, 6 o'clock-ish, and when the polls opened at 7.
Thanks, Ray. We got up real early. Our team got to White Oak School, our precinct location, at 6:20, as we were instructed by our inspector, and set up. Our equipment was already set up the night before by our inspector, Mr. Najad. So it was cold. There were no unusual events that we had to deal with. We just set our equipment out. Our paperwork was already displayed so that when voters arrived, the flag was outside, for example. Inside, all of our voting booths had been assembled. My job as one of four other workers, I was given the job to explain how to properly fill out the ballot, bubble in. This ballot was a low-tech affair, which I explained to everybody. Everybody was like, "Oh, we don't have to use a Chad pusher," whatever those things are called. And no, he said, "No, this is a coloring exercise, like you remember back from elementary school or earlier." So everybody was very good-natured. The flow of voters was continuous throughout the day at White Oak School, so we were continuously busy. It was there was never any lull, so we worked steadily throughout the day, and it went quite smoothly. I was very pleased with how smooth it went.
Well, that's a great description of the day. Now, you were involved in our election, our poll workers class. Was that class helpful? I guess the question I'm really trying to drive at is would you recommend this experience to others? And just generally, how do you feel about the election process now that you've developed or that you've devoted an pretty much an entire day and plus lots more time to this whole activity?
as you know, Ray, and you mentioned in introducing me, I'm a volunteer for many years with the City of Westlake Village. If I were Tommy Lasorda, I would say I bleed Westlake Village blue, or whatever he says about the Dodgers. So I'm committed to Westlake Village, and I believe in volunteering. And I would heartily recommend volunteering to other city citizens. We got thank yous, many thank yous from our citizens that came in and said, thank you for helping us with this election. And frequently my response was, thank you for the appreciation. So it brings its own intrinsic reward. When you volunteer, you get a lot of appreciation from our citizens, and that's very gratifying. So I would heartily recommend this. This is it's a good feeling when you do something. I mean, that's what really makes this work.
Well, yeah, you really, I think Tommy Lasorda says he bleeds blue. I don't know what we bleed, but you definitely would be in that category, Larry, because I know all the work that you give or all the volunteer time that and effort you put into the disaster response team, and today's, just another example of that. Some really terrific work, and both the city council and the staff, our city family, really appreciates all that you do, and the residents clearly, because you said they were saying thank you to you and all your fellow precinct workers. So, it's wonderful to be able to visit with you and to get your insight into how the day went. Now let's shift gears just a moment. Disaster response team. You're the sort of the assistant or deputy director, moving up through the chairs, and I will probably be director here fairly soon, if not within the next year, I would imagine. Tell us about what the disaster response team does, basically, how many volunteers we have, and maybe we'll get a little bit later in a couple of the questions how residents can get involved in that volunteer organization as well.
Sure, Ray. The disaster response team is a group of interested citizens who attend a series of basic education classes on how to respond to fire, flood, basic first aid, and the classes are free. They are given by the fire department of Los Angeles County. They take a series of 7 classes with a practice drill to put those skills to use, and we have currently probably around 30 to 40 people who are active. Last Monday evening on Halloween night was probably our biggest activity during our year, and we had 20 volunteers come out, and we walked 3 springs and drove 3 springs and provided a calming influence, hopefully, to that event. I am assistant director of the DRT. We're term limited to 3 years. I was 3 years director, and so I could not continue with this following year. So I said I'll be the assistant director and help out our new director, Scott Perotti. So yeah, it's an interesting group for people who would like to be able to protect their families, even if they don't have the extra time to devote to walking the streets on Halloween night or coming to the celebrations of TGIF, which we always provide first aid for those activities as well, and all of our runs and so forth.
Yeah, lots of interesting activities that go on with the disaster response team. It's really, one could say it's probably the eyes and ears of the city and the sheriff's department, the fire department, because in many cases, if we see a major catastrophe, major event occur, let's just say it's a major earthquake, and it hits the entire region. It's one thing if you have a fire and it's isolated, and you've got resources that are applied locally from all over the county. That's an emergency that, or a situation that is ideal in the sense that you've got the attention of all of LA County. You can apply your resources here all at once. But if you've got a major event that's taking resources and spreading them all the way throughout Los Angeles County, our disaster response team is going to be an organization that's going to play a vital role in assisting our residents as their first eyes and ears, being able to report to the Sheriff's Department via communication as to what's going on out there, and to our Emergency Operations Center here at City Hall. So it's an organization that plays a vital role in the protection of our community. And we all know it's not a case of if the next earthquake occurs, it's a case of when. And we really, as a city organization, value the disaster response team as one of the more highly thought of organizations within the region, I know, by the fire department and the sheriff's department, but you can always use more volunteers, right? Good. So let's make sure we get the word out there, and having you tonight talk a little bit about it certainly helps that. Well, Larry, I want to thank you very much for coming this evening and for sharing your time and for volunteering. I think maybe when you head out here, maybe you ought to go to bed, because it was about 5 in the morning, I'm sure, that things started for you, so it's been a long day. But thanks so much. Okay. All right, we're going to be reporting here shortly. I see the screen is dark. I think we're loading the vote count into the computer here shortly, and I believe this is the yacht club that will be reporting. Oh, well, is it? Will we see two precincts reporting? Okay, good. Yacht Club and White Oak will be reporting here shortly. That's good. Okay, terrific. While we have an opportunity, I wanted to thank again all of our wonderful volunteers today. We had some just terrific precinct workers at our 4 precincts, and I'd like to really pay special attention and recognition to them as we talk to Larry tonight. Larry served on was the White Oak Elementary School precinct, and the other individuals that served on that board included the inspector, who was Abdi Najad, and then the precinct clerks, I guess is the title that's used, that Larry worked under. In addition to Larry, we had Sybil Nisenholtz and Jane McKay. And we want to thank them all for their wonderful work today. We're going to be Westlake Yacht Club and the other precincts. Let me go through those very quickly for you to acknowledge and to thank our inspectors and clerks. For the Westlake Yacht Club, Ladan Najad was our precinct inspector. Our clerks included Roberta DeHaven, Gloria Heidowitz, and Sherry Stern. And thank you all for your wonderful work today in working that precinct. For the Westminster Presbyterian Church precinct, Joanne Robinson was our inspector, and our clerks included Marilyn Benton, Mariana DeFina, and Arlene Fisher. And thank you to those 4 wonderful folks who gave up their time today. And the last precinct, I want to recognize the precinct workers included Calvary Community Church. The inspector there was Larry Leonard, and the clerks included Roger Ellis, who is here tonight. Thank you again, Roger, for coming. Yeah, we're happy to have the help. Thanks. Harold Kushner and Marjan Perutz, and I apologize, Marjan, if I mispronounced your last name, but you know our heart's in the right place, and we really appreciate all the work that you've done. I think we're getting close to being able to report, so we're ready? Let's call up the election board and see where we're at. Okay, we've got 2 more precincts reporting, and let me run through the totals so far. Let's take a look here. Going from left to right, and this again includes 3 precincts, the Calvary Community Church, White Oak, and Yacht Club, and the vote by mail ballots. We have 2,349 votes total that have been cast so far that we're reporting. For Philippa Klessig, 685 votes, or 29.2%. For Chris Mann, 697, and that represents 29.7%. For Ned Davis, 967, or 41.2%. And for Measure K, the Las Virgenes Unified School District measure, 686 votes, yes votes, and no votes total 704. Now let's go back to the precincts and take a look going left to right, starting with Philippa Klessig and the White Oak precinct. 126 votes were cast for Philippa Klessig, representing 29% of those cast in that precinct. For Chris Mann, 130 votes cast, 29%. And for Ned Davis, 188 votes cast, or 42%. And that particular precinct, the White Oak precinct, as we look at the breakdown for Measure K, 118 votes cast as yes votes, and for no votes, they totaled 146. Now let's take a look at the Yacht Club precinct. They show the following returns. For Philippa Klessig, 122 votes, representing 29%. For Chris Mann, 114 votes. And for Ned Davis, 174 votes total. Looking at that precinct and looking at the yes votes, 137 were cast for Measure K, and 101 votes were cast against that measure. So let's recap again. And as I do so, I'm going to ask Brianne Anderson to come over for our next interview. Once again, with all but one precinct reporting now, which would be the Westminster precinct. Here are the final. Here are the preliminary votes. They include 685 for Philippa Klessig, 697 for Chris Mann, 967 for Ned Davis, and Measure K shows a total of 686 yes votes and 704 no votes. So we'll be back to the election board once we have that final Westminster precinct votes counted, which I believe should be here shortly. And in fact, as we speak, they are being brought into the council chambers, into our election area. So with that, it's my pleasure now to introduce Brianne Anderson, who's our Community Services Director, or Coordinator. She directs everything that has anything to do with cultural and recreation programs. And we're going to talk a little bit about some programs that have occurred and are about to occur. And so let's start with the latter, what's occurred. And we had a big event a couple Saturdays ago, and I'd like Brianne to tell us a little bit about what happened on that particular Saturday, a little bit of a celebration going on.
Thank you, Ray. About 3 weeks ago, approximately 2,500 people attended the 9th Annual City Celebration here at City Hall. We enjoyed 9 special elements with our residents that added up to one afternoon and evening that would be really hard to top next year, but we will do our best. The day was truly a celebration of community as the city collaborated with members of the White Oak Elementary PFC, the Triumpha YMCA Youth and Government Program, Rotary Club of Westlake Village, 11 featured local performances, Friends of the Westlake Village Library, local teen band The Sheds, E-Waste Document Shredding Group Access, E-Waste Company PC Recycle, the Westlake Village Community Foundation, Lost Hills Sheriff Station, Fire Station 144, the Cultural Recreation Advisory Board, Westlake Village DRT, and the Westlake Village VIP groups all put together a bigger event than ever before. This year, the event had bigger rides, a new e-waste and document event, a gourmet barbecue sponsored by Stonefire, and beer and wine sponsored by Wade's Wines. These new elements brought a new group of attendees to the event and helped raise awareness about the organizations and local businesses in the community.
It was a wonderful event. It seems like the city celebration continues to grow every year. This year, there were a couple new features that you talked about. The Foundation Barbecue, which was very well received, and we look forward to doing that again next year. And then the Twilight Run, I think, was new, if I'm not mistaken. Second year, apologize, second year. So we have lots to look forward to in the coming city celebrations in the future. Yes, 10th anniversary. So let's talk a little bit about what's coming up now in December. We've got an event planned that's sort of circling around the city's incorporation and its birthday party.
On Sunday, December 11th, is our final of 3 anniversary events, and that one is from 1 to 5 p.m. at Bernice Bennett Park, and that one will be our Winter Wonderland event, and that is our event that is scheduled as basically a day of snow in Westlake Village. We're bringing in 40 tons of snow to the park and having 4 themed snow areas. So there will be snowball throwing, there will be a tot lot for snow angels, there will be 3 sledding tracks in Bernice Bennett Park. There will also be a snowman building area, so if you've never done that before, you'll get that chance. If you miss it because you moved out here, you get to do that again. We'll be having commemorative winter caps with the logo on it for the first 500 guests. The Triumpho YMCA will be here selling hot drinks. And then Latigo Kid will be there with their chili Colorado and quesadillas. So you'll be able to get some more food if you don't want to be near the snow or just need to warm your hands up and tummies up. We'll also be having a cookie decorating station, and our local schools are going to be supplying the entertainment for the day. So we have Lindero Middle School is going to bring in their jazz groups. Agora High School is going to bring in their choirs and one of their jazz groups. White Oak is going to be doing their entire winter program from their chorus. And then Oaks Christian is coming in as well. So we're having lots of local entertainment throughout the day. And then from 5 to 7, we're having a cake, champagne, and cider reception in the First Neighborhood Center to honor the city's actual date of incorporation on December 11th with a mayoral reception that's open to our residents.
Sounds like great fun. So we're hoping for cold weather so that our snow will stay snow for a while anyway. Should be great fun. Now, one other program that has really taken off is our One City, One Book program, our City Reads program. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And then I think what we'll do is I'd like to call Scott Wolf, our planning director, for a few comments on some planning projects.
Sure. Our One City, One Book program called Westlake Village Reads is in its 3rd year now. We're actually preparing our marketing materials as we speak. And we have adapted our program to be a One City, One Theme program. And this year's theme has been approved as food. So all of our programming is themed around food. And so how we tie in the books in the library that is an LA County library. So we tie in all of the books and the programming around food. So not just cookbooks, but mystery books and everything like that. Some of the programs we're doing, we're bringing in Lorraine Newman, who's a Saturday Night Live alumni, to read from her food blog and have a whole coffee house atmosphere. We're having a cupcake decorating display, which I know Ray's very excited about, for Valentine's weekend. We are having Tifa, which is a chocolate store in Agora. They're coming in and doing a chocolate tasting and teaching people about chocolate. So obviously the books in the library will be highlighting chocolate-themed books that week. And just incorporating all of that. We're incorporating local businesses. This time we're working with a lot of the sushi restaurants to do a sushi program as well. We're having a poetry seminar and just really highlighting those programs to get programs for all ages and all families, and it's from January through February. And I think we've have 10 programs this year.
All wonderful programs, and Brianne, and they're all free. And we look forward to even bigger and better events in the coming months. So thank you very much for sharing all that information with us. And I see you need to get back with your assistant there to make sure that nothing happens to those ballot boxes over there. So thanks, Brianne. So just going back, looking at our election board again, we have all but one precinct reporting, and that's the Westminster polling location. And ballots are now being inspected from that particular ballot box. They have reported, or they have finished up their work at the precinct, and we should have results here in just a few minutes, and that will end up with all 4 precincts counted, as well as the vote by mail ballots. So now joining us is Scott Wolf, who's our planning director. Lots of things happening in the world of current planning and future planning, Scott. Let's take a look at a couple vacant properties that are calling some attention to themselves. And then let's talk a little bit about a study that's underway that is a multi-year study that has some importance to the community. First, let's zero in on a piece of property that's been vacant for a few years. It's the site of the former Westlake Medical Center building, which was raised this last year. There are some potential future plans that are underway, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. The hospital site, as you mentioned, is currently vacant. The building was knocked down earlier this year. The owner of the hospital site, HCA Corporation, has been marketing the site for a number of years now, and they've actually entered into a contract with a potential buyer who is looking at developing a senior housing complex there. And we have not seen a formal application yet, but they have been in to talk to us, and they have been doing a considerable amount of public outreach to get community feedback on their proposals. And from what we know so far, it looks like we're going to see an application here in the next couple of months for a project of about 120 to 130 units of senior assisted and independent living units on that site. They're also talking about some significant component of the site being used for a public amenity. We don't know exactly what that is yet, but we should see that come in here, like I said, within the next couple of months.
And as that evolves, one of the important aspects that we want to mention to our residents and to the community is that before that project really moves forward, there'll be an early review by the City Council in what's called a concept review, where the applicant would present information in concept about his project, and then receive feedback from the City Council as to issues and concerns and so on. And it also allows an opportunity for the community to provide input at a very early stage to the developer and to the City Council on the proposed project. The next piece of vacant land that we want to zero in on is an area that is called Planning Area C of the Westlake North Specific Plan. It's a fancy name for about a 19-20 acre vacant piece of parcel located on Russell Ranch Road, directly behind the existing cemetery. That was the subject of a special election, the Lowe's measure, which was defeated several years ago. And now a new project has emerged, and it has gone through several iterations. That particular piece of property had an approved project for office, and then that project fell by the wayside. It was purchased by Dan Selleck, who is now interested in a commercial project. Let's hear a little bit about what that's about.
Sure. The Selleck Development Group does own the property at this point, and they are currently proposing, we actually have an application, they are currently proposing a retail shopping center, which is to be anchored by a large anchor. At this point, it's intended to be Target. In addition to the Target facility, there are approximately 100,000 square feet or so of additional retail that's proposed with that, including some restaurants and some retail shops and such. The project right now is currently in the review phase. There's kind of 2 tracks going on. The first track is the environmental review. That's currently going on. We have a consultant working on the environmental impact report, taking care of all the studies that need to be taken care of and evaluating those impacts so that the City Council has all the information that they need at the time that this actually does come to hearing. The other track that's going on is the internal staff track, and that's our design review process. And The planning department is working with an outside consultant and the city engineer, city traffic engineer, to review this project and work on the design to make it as functional and as pleasing a project as it can be. The City Council's ad hoc committee will be meeting with the applicant very soon here to discuss their feelings on the project, and then we anticipate in the next month or so bringing this project back for a concept review before the City Council.
Great, thank you, Scott. And then lastly, let's talk a little bit about, I alluded to a study that is underway by the city. This was a study commissioned by the City Council about a year and a half ago or thereabouts, maybe a little bit longer than that. It's a multi-year study, and it's a business park study that we're looking at. And let's talk a little bit about what that entails.
Sure. The study you're referring to is a multidisciplinary study. It was completed back around the middle of this year, and the purpose of the study was to evaluate the potential for redevelopment or reuse of a number of the areas of the business park located on the north side of the freeway, west of Lindero Canyon Road and generally south of Thousand Oaks Boulevard. The business park area there is still fairly viable, but we're noticing a lot of the buildings are approaching the end of their lifespan, and we're starting to see some interest in redeveloping those sites. The City Council wanted to get ahead of that and have a plan in place so that when the economy did turn around and we started to see that interest increase again, we would have a plan to work with as opposed to dealing with these parcels on a case-by-case basis. The study was conducted by a group of consultants that the city hired to come in and evaluate the site. They had come up with a rough, very conceptual plan to start with that the City Council, in concept, told them to move forward with. And for the last several months, they've been working on formalizing that plan through the creation of what's known as a specific plan document. And this document will become a part of the city's municipal code and part of the city's general plan, and will guide the development of private property as well as public rights-of-way and infrastructure into the future in much the same way that the Westlake North area was developed since the late 80s. So we anticipate the first draft of this document to be in our office here for review here within the next couple of months and released to the public probably sometime around the end of the year for review, and we'll have the City Council looking at this along the way. There'll be multiple opportunities for public review and input before this finally does go before the City Council for a hearing sometime next year.
Just interrupting for a moment, our ballot inspection board has just finished their task of reviewing all the ballots for the Westminster precinct, and our representatives from Martin and Chapman that will be operating the ballot counter are about to start that process. So we should have the results here from that last precinct ready for public view in just a few moments here. So on this business park study, Scott, what are some of the major elements to it? I know we've talked, there's been discussion about a design review district, a live-work district, and so on. What do you see coming out of that project in the way of a final specific plan? And what do you think the long-term benefit of that effort will be to the city? Because it is a multi-year project. It's not an inexpensive project. It's about a $400,000 investment in a study that will hopefully lead to a channeling development in the future in that business park area in a way that is consistent with the city's general plan and specific plan. But where do you think that's headed?
The direction it's headed is not. We're not looking at wholesale changes to the entire area up there, and we're certainly not talking about the city moving in and condemning buildings or tearing down buildings and replacing them. The intent of the plan is to provide a bit of a framework for property owners to know what their potential is for development in the future, and to give them some degree of security that the city would consider and approve a particular plan that they had proposed. The other benefit to that being that a lot of the environmental work would have been done ahead of time, and so that there would be some savings to the property owners in the long run at that point also. What we're seeing coming out of the plan, as you mentioned, is again, not really a wholesale change, but sort of a redirection in the types of land uses we're seeing there. You mentioned a design district. We've got an area of the city up there that already contains quite a few businesses that are geared toward home improvement and decor and design, and the intent of this plan would be to formalize that into a district that would encourage that type of business and really make this part of the city into a destination, a regional destination for people who would be looking to shop for that type of wear. In addition to that, we have, as you mentioned, a potential live-work district, which is a portion of the business park which could be converted to residential use in the future, some high-end condominiums. There are actually a couple of areas which are identified, at least in the concept plan, for the live-work type of development. And in addition to the retail, small retail component that's included within the plan, we're also looking at potentially expanding our corporate campus area, which currently exists along Lindero Canyon Road near the corner of Thousand Oaks Boulevard, all the way down all the way down Lindero Canyon Road to Via Colinas. So there are a number of different components to the plan, a number of different directions it can go, but this, as you mentioned, is a long-term plan. It's something that we anticipate the build-out taking a number of years, possibly 15, 20, or even more years before we actually see it all built out.
All right. Well, thanks very much, Scott. We appreciate the update on those projects. I think the community needs to stay tuned, and we will be getting more information out about concept reviews for the former hospital site and the Planning Area C project, and more information about the business park study as it evolves. But we appreciate all the updates on that. Thank you. And I think we're going to need you to get back to your station so that we can input results here fairly soon. Okay, I'm going to ask Beth to come back, Beth Schott, our city clerk and our elections official for tonight. So, Beth, we're about ready to run or to post the results for the last precinct. But I said at the outset that these are results that could change. And maybe you could talk a little bit about what is in store after tonight. We undertake what's called an official canvass of the election. And maybe we can talk a little bit about what that entails and what may result from that.
Well, what we'll do tomorrow, we have our official canvass scheduled for 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. We're a board of 4 persons of our City Hall staff, which will be, I believe, myself, our city manager, Ray Taylor, our deputy city clerk, Patty, and Carrie Coleman, our administrative analyst. We will all meet after our provisionals and vote-by-mail ballots have been, excuse me, I'm getting tired, after they have been verified, the signatures on those ballots. After the envelope signatures have been verified, they will be counted by hand by our canvassing board. At the same time that we do that, our canvassing board will also hand count one of our precincts, just as a double check on our voting machine.
And that hand count is actually prescribed by the state elections code, which says that you can either do 1% of the vote by hand count or a precinct, and we always choose a precinct. It makes the most sense to do that. So we have approximately, what would you say, we know that these are imprecise numbers, but we have some provisional ballots that have yet to be counted, and some vote-by-mail ballots that were delivered to various precincts. And maybe you mentioned that, but what's that total, just roughly, just to give everyone an understanding of where we stand on that?
It's someplace around 100. So it's a pretty high number. So it will make a possible difference in some of our outcome.
All right. I think we're just about ready to report. So we'll go dark with our screen, and Scott will input that information. It's being double-checked by, everything is being checked and double-checked. But you can see this evening, as we went through this process tonight, that the state elections code is very precise in terms of its requirements, starting with the entire election itself, the nomination process, how precincts are handled, how polling places conduct themselves or are conducted, and then of course on election night, the four boards that we have all are prescribed by the state elections code. So it's a very definitive process that only the state of California could probably come up with in terms of its requirements. Those of you that know me well, and Roger Ellis, who was with us for the poll workers class, know that I always like to throw a few quotes out on different issues depending on the topic that's being discussed. And so since I'm filling a little bit of time, I thought I would take this opportunity to just take a few quotes here that are always fun to throw out there. This one is a quote. It's an unknown one, and it goes like this. Elections are a good deal like marriages. There's no accounting for anyone's tastes. Every time we see a bridegroom, we wonder why she ever picked him, and it's the same with public officials. So that's my first quote. It's an unknown one. Let's save that one for last. Now, this is not intended to provide any offense to our current city council members or potentially new council members, but this is a quote from Jay Leno, and he said that if God wanted us to vote, he would have given us candidates. I thought that's very appropriate for this evening. And this one is by Michael Novak. Our political institutions work remarkably well. They're designed to clang against each other. The noise is democracy at work. And this is yet another quote. And this one, I think, has some truth to it. Bad officials are elected by good citizens who do not vote. And this was by George Jean Nathan. And the last quote is, I think, the most apropos for the evening. And this one was by Harry Truman, and it reads, "It's not the hand that signs the laws that holds the destiny of America. It's the hand that casts the ballot." And I think that sums up the election process itself. Now, we're not the only election occurring in Los Angeles County. There are a number of other elections taking place in Los Angeles County and all across the state and really all across the country. And I think it's one of our true blessings in our democracy to have this opportunity, this privilege to cast votes in our representative democracy. So this is a very exciting day all across our country and certainly in Westlake Village as we just about come to the conclusion of our evening. Now, let's take a look and see what's happening here. We're ready? Okay, let's call up the election board. All right, we've got the Yacht Club reporting here. Let's see, Westminster. I'm sorry, the Westminster precinct reporting. That will conclude all four precincts in the vote by mail. Let's go left to right as we've done through the evening, starting first with Philippa Klessig. 884 votes, or 30%. Chris Mann at 845 votes, 28.6%. Ned Davis, 1,221 votes, 41.4%. And Measure K, 849 votes, yes, and 878 votes, no. And let's go back now to the Westminster precinct going left to right. Let's take a look at those numbers. We had 199 votes cast for Philippa Klessig, or 34% of all ballots cast in that precinct. For Chris Mann, we had 148 votes cast, or 25% of all votes cast in that precinct. And for Ned Davis, 254 votes, or 42%. And then looking at the numbers for Measure K, that precinct showed 163 votes yes and 174 votes no. So that pretty much wraps up the evening in terms of our election results. Total votes cast again, 2,950. I want to remind everyone now that these are unofficial results in that a canvassing has to occur and provisional votes have yet to be counted, and a number of provisional votes and a number of vote-by-mail ballots have yet to be counted, and they will be shortly, tomorrow, I believe, in our canvassing. So we'll have more up-to-date numbers at that point in time. So with that, I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who came down today to be a part of this process. I certainly want to thank all of the precinct workers that I named this evening that put in a very long, hard day of work and did a yeoman's job from 6 a.m. basically to after 8. By the time they closed up shop, it was considerably after 8 p.m. And we saw Larry Svoboda representing that in our interviews tonight. I want to thank all of our election officials, all of our staff that participated in the event tonight. I want to thank GovTV for outstanding coverage and all their assistance in the effort this evening. And I want to especially thank all of our residents who took the time to exercise their right in this democracy, representative democracy, to cast their ballots and to help shape the future of the community. And we are very thankful for their participation. So with that, I would like to, I guess, end this presentation and our live coverage with in a way that somebody mentioned, I think it was Larry Svoboda mentioned Tommy Lasorda. Well, I'd like to mention Vin Scully, who is our beloved Dodger announcer, who I hope will have at least another year of his good announcing with the Los Angeles Dodgers. But he always ends the evening with a special phrase that I think is very apropos for tonight, and I'd like to use it, and it's just good night, everybody. Thank you very much.